Hello and welcome to Warp Factor Unknown, the podcast where we delve into the world of Star Trek for an unpredictable rewatch and discussion. I'm your host Dan, and joining me today is Tom, who's currently trying to master the Vulcan nerve pinch.
Yes, it's deep in practice, but I'm getting there.
Fantastic. And also joining us today is an expert in Borg assimilation defense strategies, Madeline.
Set it to randomize. Happy to be back.
Excellent, fantastic. Yeah, thank you both for coming along. Welcome to season 3. We're doing it. Huzzah!
Yes, good to be back.
Good to be back, yeah. Now, season 3, there's 3 of us, and that's going to be the plan going forward. We're going to try and have a third host, me, Tom, somebody else. So Madeline, you're here for us today, and hopefully you'll be here with us for the next episode as well. That's the plan, assuming our adult lives don't get in the way. Today, we are talking about the Star Trek Voyager episode Resistance, and that is from season 2, episode 12. And we're going to give you a recap. I'm going to pass you over to Tom for that recap.
Captain Janeway leads an away team to an alien planet to procure a vital chemical for the ship. During the mission, Tuvok and B'Elanna Torres are captured by the oppressive Mokra authorities, and Janeway is injured. A local man named Kalem rescues her, believing she is his daughter, Ralkana. Commander Chakotay takes charge of Voyager during Janeway's absence, attempting to negotiate with the Mokra. However, the Mokra prove to be hostile and deceitful, making direct diplomacy impossible, leading the crew to find other ways of finding the away team. Trying to break through the planet's sensor net, they're discovered and a small engagement ensues. Kalem, delusional from past traumas, assists Janeway in infiltrating the Mokra prison to free her crew. They successfully reach Tuvok and Torres, but are soon apprehended by the Mokra commander, Orgris. Orgris reveals that Kalem's real daughter and wife died years earlier, and he has been unable to accept their deaths. Kalem attacks Orgris to protect Janeway, resulting in Orgris' death. However, Kalem is fatally wounded by Mokra guards. As he dies, Janeway comforts Kalem, allowing him to believe he has saved his daughter, providing him peace in his last moments. Back on Voyager, Janeway reflects on Kalem's kindness and tragic delusion, keeping the necklace he gave her as a memento.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm just trying to find my notes, but I know you guys have got some initial reactions, so please, give us your initial thoughts on this episode, Resistance.
Matt, do you want to go first?
When you texted me and you said Voyager Resistance, it's been a couple of years since I've done a rewatch. I initially was really excited because I thought you meant the 2-parter, I don't know what season, but like the French Resistance World War II one. And I got so excited, and so I was a little bit disappointed when I actually sat down to watch this episode. It wasn't my favorite. Tom?
I would concur with that. I can't remember the Resistance episode that you're talking about because
it's certainly better than this
Voyager.
one.
But I could imagine that any other Resistance episode would be better than this one because I also didn't enjoy it. And we'll go through, I'm sure, what the parts that we both all didn't enjoy soon. But I just thought it didn't gel together for me in any coherent way to make it enjoyable. Like, what's his name? Who's the guy? Kalem.
Mokra? No,
Kalem. Yeah. I thought Mokra was great. I thought the Orgris was brilliant. He was probably my favourite actor in this because he's just stern and
good villain,
very abrupt and just unbendable. Kalem just annoyed me from everything he did or said, and I think Janeway should have been a bit more. I don't know. I am not your daughter, sort of thing, but she didn't. And that annoyed me through the episode. Apart from that, good episode.
Tom, I'm going to ask you a question. When you think about Voyager, the series, and kind of the word resistance and what resistance means, do you think of this kind of episode?
No.
Yeah.
No. For me, it's been a while since I've watched Voyager as a complete whole, but it didn't. It seemed like a standalone episode of annoying people. Whereas I think Resistance for Voyager is resisting against not getting home. They want to travel home, and this to me didn't really do that.
Yeah, like
I think I know what I'm trying to say.
No, I understand. When I sat down to watch this, I mean, I was disappointed that it wasn't the French Resistance with Janeway and her French accent that she abandons after 2 minutes. What I was actually expecting was a conversation, maybe observations about the Marquis and Starfleet. Because we're in the second season. This is still a topic that's coming up. I thought when we were presented with the Mokra, I thought, oh, okay, we're going to have a bit of observations perhaps on similarities or differences between the Marquis back in the Alpha Quadrant. And we're going to have B'Elanna's opinions and Chakotay's opinions and Paris's opinions reflecting on how the Mokra are treating the people on the planet and also the crew members that they've kidnapped and are interrogating. But when I watch this episode, it's not even a whisper. Chakotay is playing the normal Starfleet commander / captain. I think he even said, if there's a chance of a diplomatic solution, we have to pursue it, when he's speaking to the commander, trying to release Janeway, Tuvok, and B'Elanna. So I thought we were going to get some really interesting resistance fighting, some really interesting political conversations, guerrilla warfare sort of stuff. The stuff that we get a little bit in the first 2 seasons of Voyager, and certainly much more in Deep Space Nine. But I was disappointed to find that there was none of this. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
It does. It didn't follow the theme of how you would expect it to be. It was like a. Would you say this is almost like
Yeah.
I love the observation. I didn't get that at all. Well, I didn't make that connection of what the episode could have done. I had some other thoughts on why the episode wasn't that great, but yeah, that's actually a really good point of how the episode could have tied it more closely with what was happening on Voyager. Because I think by this point in the show, season 2, season 3, they'd kind of really dropped the whole Marquis thing, and it was just such a shame because it was such a cool and interesting idea that they never explore. And yeah, that'd have been fantastic because this episode was very much, it was kind of like a bit like 1984 kind of society. So they really could have leaned into that sort of resistance kind of movement and fighting against that oppressive regime. And there could have been parallels between this very clearly and obviously evil regime against like the formal structure of like Starfleet. Even though it is not evil, it is still in a way oppressing these Marquis crew members and Chakotay. But as you say, Chakotay was just boring straight man first officer.
Yeah. I can imagine, B'Elanna was on the planet. Imagine the kind of strategy she could have gone, no, Janeway, this is not going to work. Trust me, when I was in the Marquis XYZ, this would be more effective.
Yeah.
I found Neelix was actually, in the small amount of screen time that he had, he was more successful at being an operative. And he was the one that actually succeeded in the mission. Then B'Elanna, Paris didn't really participate, and Chakotay didn't participate either.
Do you guys remember the episode, I think it's over a couple episodes of DS9, where Kira teaches Goldacott how to be a resistance fighter, because he's like this big general, he's always like led armies and stuff, and now he's on like the back foot. Basically exactly that with Torres. She could have what a great episode it could have been.
And she holds no holds no barrels. What's the term?
I don't think it is that.
Okay, I'm not
but
going to use that.
It is something like that.
But she wouldn't have held back either. I can just imagine the conversations she would have had with Janeway. Whatever. I think I've bashed that on the head enough.
It would have been very good for Janeway to sort of have to change how she deals with a situation that the Starfleet way isn't going to work here. I think it'd been good for her to be confronted with that, actually. But you mentioned Neelix a minute ago, and he was a great kind of operative. And also, what an outfit! He was
I
wearing his like cool
know.
like gangster outfit.
Yeah,
and,
it did look
so
good.
cool. And it reminded me on the very beginning of Voyager when they first meet Neelix. He has like his own ship, which we never see again.
know.
And I love that.
I love Neelix.
So much potential with Voyager. Tom, I want to come back to you actually because you mentioned a couple of times in the past 10 minutes or so that you didn't really sort of like Calum.
No, so
one of the main characters.
I quite rarely have actually made notes on this episode, and I'm looking through them now. I have 8 paragraphs of notes, and 6 of them are about Calum. So I'll just quickly mention the positive points before I delve into Calum. So good opening fight scene. There's a good backflip over a trolley, which I thought was very well done. Janeway getting shot.
Is that a good note? Is it? Yeah.
Well, I played it a few times just to make sure it was accurate, and she actually gets shot above her shoulder on the wall, and then I thought, hang on a minute. So I played it again, and she definitely doesn't get hit, but then she grabs for her shoulder. So I can only think, to keep it realistic, there must have been a rebound off the wall that then hit her shoulder, but it looks like there wasn't. Anyway, there was that, but good effects, and her reaction to that, perfect. You know, it really acted like she got shot, even though it clearly showed her not getting shot. Anyway, that was by the by. So they were the good points of the episode. Janeway getting shot. And
on the thing about Janeway getting shot and that whole like beginning fight scene, the henchmen, the guards, I think they look fantastic. They look like Daft Punk.
Yes, they were good.
Costumes.
Good costumes. So my other points about Calum, which the rest of my notes are about, are just how annoying he is. She was very calm considering how she didn't know this guy, and he comes up basically saying, "You're my daughter," and she dealt with it calmly as you'd expect Janeway to do. But he
was touching her face.
I know.
Like she just woke up and he was inches away. And he was like stroking her face.
Yeah.
That would have been
respect my personal bubble.
Confronting, yeah.
Definitely.
I'm surprised she didn't just punch him.
Well, I actually put, couldn't Janeway have just knocked that annoying person out? She was very calm considering it's one of my notes. And then I put, he annoys me, his rambling sort of amnesia-like loss of memory babble. And it's also the way, I don't know who the actor is, but I didn't believe him because he almost overacted his loss of memory.
Yep.
And you think, I don't get it. And then when he's in the square and that one person's about to get arrested and Calum comes up and starts acting like a fool to try and distract away from it. That to me, it just felt so cringe. Like his actions, but then the prosecutor guy is like, "Oh, Calum, here's your hat," and he puts the hat on him. I was like, "Oh!" So I had to watch that twice, and I cringed both times, internally and externally. Oh yeah, I'll conclude my Calum notes, otherwise I'll keep going back to it every time we talk. He redeemed himself when he performed. I don't know why I put this. He performed the stiffy ender slap on the guy in the hall. Did he hit the guy in the? In the testicles, or did I miss that bit?
I mean, you wrote it down, so I trust you.
Put the stiff.
You must have seen a stiffy.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Well, he performed the stiffy ender slap on the guy in the hall after Janeway tried to be seducey. Is what I put. So.
Right, I think that's the podcast done. Really.
Yeah.
That ends my my Calum notes.
Look, there's not much to him. Another complaint I have is I don't take issue with the kind person with trauma that means they cannot really process their reality as it is. This exists in real life, but also it exists absolutely in fiction. What I wish could have been better is that maybe it wasn't so obvious from the get-go. Like, wouldn't it have been really interesting to have a conversation with Janeway as she's woken up and he's helping her, and to give her some actual current helpful advice about the prison and maybe what he saw, and then just little bits come through that maybe he's not quite viewing her as a stranger that he's helped. Like, just have little bits that start to make her question, what's going on with Caleb? You know, can I trust the information that he's given me because he's starting to act a little bit strange around me? I don't know. I kind of would have liked that, but they just went all in. She wakes up with him stroking her face, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're my daughter." And, I don't know. I just think it could have been. I'm sure the actor would have been able to work with that material, making it a little bit more subtle. That's my notes on that.
I agree with that.
I kind of like. I think I liked Kaelin play a bit more. Well, definitely more than you did, Tom. And I don't know. I'll probably come back to that same with you, Madge. Is that like, yeah, the opening bit where he starts, he's like touching her face and stuff. I feel like that could have been a bit more of a hot, confrontational kind of Janeway waking up kind of thing, because she starts off like she's almost immediately very sympathetic, which I do like how she plays that throughout the episode. Did she just take pity on this?
But it's unusual for her. I feel.
Yeah. And yeah, I kind of like what you were just saying there, Matt, about, maybe it could have been a bit more subtle in his approach. And yeah, the bit in the marketplace where he's playing the fool, that was a pretty cringy scene from him and Argus and like even like the whole crowd around them. It didn't quite work very well. But then there were other scenes, like there was one scene where I think he was trying to write a letter, and he was like, he sort of like breaks down a little
very
bit.
Sad.
And that was really good. Like he played it really well then. So in some ways, I really like this character.
Yeah.
And I like that the show was sort of depicting, somebody who's got some serious mental health issues, but also it could have been done better.
I think the cringe moment in the market, I can see what they were trying to do, which is maybe a reflection on people that do have mental illnesses, potentially homeless individuals, individuals that just that don't typically get the attention of passers-by, bystanders, and even law enforcement. I can see that, by him being this, I'm just going to say in quotation marks, but crazy guy, they're like, oh, he must not be a threat, so I'm not going to, bother with him. And I can see that they were trying to do something like that, but they made his behavior a little bit over the top ridiculous, that it just kind of was lost, I think, on me.
Yeah, I kind of felt that the episode, you was talking earlier, Matt, about how it could have like an interesting conversation around, more resistance stuff. I think the episode could have also had a more interesting conversation about society's perception of people with mental health issues and, maybe people who are homeless and stuff. And it didn't, but I think it could have. And I think that would have been better than what we got.
I agree. And that just makes me think, actually, sorry, I'm jumping in again, is that I didn't really like the twist at the end that Caleb's loss and trauma and subsequent mental illness was kind of caused by him being a coward. And I'm again, coward in quotation marks. He was too afraid to meet his wife outside the prison so they could, go in and to take down the Mokra. And he says he was too scared, so he didn't arrive. And it's implied that that's why she died. That's why she was imprisoned and then died in prison. And it's like, no, the conversation is they killed her. They killed his daughter. And that was lost. It's like, oh, Caleb, this is your fault. I didn't like that.
Yeah, like they died from the suppressive regime.
Yeah.
And, I'm fairly certain that neither of you, like myself, have ever been in like an oppressive situation or like any sort of like combat situation. I'm pretty confident I would also be very reluctant to, take part in any of that kind of stuff. And like you read about like resistance movements from the Second World War and other times, and you're like, yeah, they're some brave people.
Yeah.
They do some really. They really do put their own life and the life of their friends and family at high risk. And you're like, well, of course there were going to be people, in Paris, during the Nazi occupation that didn't want to get involved with the resistance.
Yeah.
And that's a perfectly normal reaction to have.
And Voyager will discuss this in those fantastic episodes that I was hoping we were watching. And Deep Space Nine obviously explores it a lot better.
I do have a big, I guess, problem, I think, with like Janeway's core mission on this her plan to escape, as it were. So she wakes up and she first of all asks about communication, and the answer was no. So then she goes to a backup plan of a prison break. I think she should have stuck on the route of finding a radio to contact Voyager.
Yep.
She's just one person. Like, getting a radio is way easier, or building a radio than yeah. So
this is the same conversation we have with every Star Trek episode. The captains always pretend that they're not important. Her duty would have been to find a communication, somehow beam back aboard the ship, and actually be the captain.
Yeah, because they just have more resources. They can just do more than what she can do.
Yeah, I know.
Another thing I would like to have seen, because we have there's a couple of scenes with like with B'Elanna and Tuvok in prison, and Tuvok gets tortured, and because this is an oppressive regime, basically like 1984. I think a conversation around how torture isn't effective for getting correct information, and how the information they get out of torture victims isn't correct, just does not work. And I think that could have been a good way to go down, but instead B'Elanna and Tuvok were just she was sort of saying, "Are you not angry?" And he's like, "No." And it was a fine conversation, but
it could have been a lot better.
I don't know. Yeah, could have been better. Could have been better.
They should have focused their attentions on B'Elanna. Who are you going to interrogate? You're going to interrogate Tuvok, a gentleman that you've just met that's literally has given you nothing. Even just the conversation, he is a brick wall. Who are you going to choose? Him or B'Elanna, who is just emotionally volatile? And they chose Tuvok.
Yeah.
And no wonder 3 hours later they drag him back to the cell and he's given them nothing. I'm like, yeah, you should have known that when you spoke to him.
Yeah.
She probably would have given up in 5 minutes, not because she would have succumbed to the pain, but because she would have been emotionally manipulated somehow. They would have frustrated her so much that she would have spilled the beans before they even had to, I don't know, get the taser out or whatever they used. So yeah, that was a bit weird on the commander's choice. Or maybe there was a reluctance with women, maybe the reluctance by the show writers to have a woman tortured,
Maybe. I could definitely see that have been a thing.
But it was quite a brutal thing that happened when you heard Tuvok scream, and you're like, well, he's a Vulcan, and for them to do what they did to actually push it to that level where he felt pain and couldn't block it out.
Yeah, and then you're right. So you're right, Dan. That, sorry, Tom. I can't remember. One of you is right. Where she wanted a debrief. He just gets back from 3 hours of torture, clearly not doing so well, and she wants to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Aren't you angry?
Yeah.
Can you give this man 5 minutes? 10 minutes, maybe.
Give him a glass of water.
That's it.
I want to talk a little bit, not too much, but I want to talk a little bit about Chakotay. Two things. I have two notes on Chakotay. First of all, I really like the very opening of the show. It opens on Chakotay, and he's staring almost lovingly at the warp core, and I love that. Even though we immediately afterwards learned that the warp core's broken, I was like, when it first opened, I was like, oh, he's admiring the warp core. It's not just Brad Boimler who enjoys a good warp core. Chakotay too. So I really like that. But more serious note, I actually, when the plan kind of fails and Neelix gets back and all the rest of it, I like Chakotay's plan of try diplomacy first. Even though this is not a system that, like a style of government and system that Starfleet tends to agree with, sometimes you have kind of got to try and trust the system. You have to try and work through their processes as opposed to just going in gung-ho. So, and I like how he's like, you got to start from a position of trust and that kind of thing. So I kind of like that. But also, the reality was a second away mission was definitely going to be needed. There's no way they're solving that from space. So yeah, did you guys like the whole diplomacy bit he was trying?
Yes, if it had a bit expanded. And I don't want to repeat my previous point, but if we could have seen his growth, but also his struggles, I can imagine Chakotay, again, being a leader of the Maquis, a very effective leader of the Maquis, just wanting to punch this guy in the face or to just go down in a shuttle to the planet and rescue everyone and liberate the planet. I can see that. And then him trying to stifle that and remember what he's learnt from Starfleet, what he's learnt from Janeway, and then go, no, I must do this the right way and choose the Starfleet diplomatic way. Would have loved that. We didn't get that.
Sorry, as you were saying all of that, I was thinking, Voyager did do that. They did that with Tom Paris. That's his story arc.
Yes.
And like, that should have also been Chakotay. So you could have two
And
characters
B'Elanna.
going through a similar journey from different perspectives.
Yeah.
That'd have been great.
Especially because Chakotay obviously has that leadership position. Paris's is interesting because while he's incredibly crucial as the pilot, he doesn't actually have to lead these kind of life or death discussions with other species or other factions. But they should have had similar character growth.
I guess I wonder if they were worried about it because if they'd made Chakotay too much of a rebellious type, it would have just been another rehash of Kira and Sisko.
Yep. But also don't make him lay down like a dog.
Yeah. Or don't make him Marquis. Like, you know what I mean? Just have a regular first officer and have the Marquis in the ship elsewhere.
Yeah. But yes, I'm happy for Chakotay trying diplomacy.
Yeah. And if we're being honest, right, in some ways, the Mokra in this episode, they've got a point that they actually, when it comes to dealing with Voyager, they're correct. Voyager has been a dick since they arrived.
Oh, yeah.
Sneaky missions, black market trading.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with the Mokra. Yeah, fuck Voyager in this instance. That they didn't even try initially.
That was my question: do we get any explanation of why they didn't outright try and establish communications and then do a trade for the Tellurium?
I think it's because of Neelix. I think Neelix had told them, "Oh yeah, this is a really bad civilization. I know we've got to go there because we're desperate."
That's fine.
But
you can take that on notice. But Janeway still could have set up some sort of meeting. Instead of doing a risky away mission that you send your captain on and your chief of engineering.
I was just thinking about something. This episode could have done with more time advancement because it all seemed to take place in one segment of time, didn't it? And I was just thinking of that episode where Star Trek goes into this orbit of this planet and is sort of hailed as a celestial being by the people on the planet.
I love that episode.
Time advances from early sort of civilization up till they start firing on them because they've developed futuristic capabilities. And I just love that. And I think this episode could have probably done with more of that. I don't know if I'm just thinking fondly of that episode.
No, actually, I think that's a great point. If Janeway had been on the planet, stuck down there for several weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know. And again, built up a relationship with the Resistance and done some stuff. I think, it'd have been better.
I must watch that episode again because
that's a great episode. I like how our entire conversation for the past 25 minutes has just been, and then this happened in the episode. It wouldn't have been better if it had happened this way instead.
Yeah.
Not a single point.
That's a sign of a quality
Yeah.
episode. That is. Yeah.
Tom, I think the reason why they didn't do the time slowing down and having weeks go by is because another episode in this season called Resolutions, so another R episode, is that silly episode where Chakotay and Janeway have that terminal illness and they have to stay on that planet. And I think it's for months. And all I remember is that Chakotay makes her a bath. And so I think that's why they can't do that with this episode, because they'll never get back to the Alpha Quadrant.
Yeah.
They keep spending weeks and
every
weeks on
episode
planet.
has years, months on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, all I remember is that he made her a bath.
That was actually a good one because that actually had some really good character exploration of those two who, it's kind of like a will they won't they kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's obviously a won't they.
When you say made her a bath, you mean actually constructed one or
yeah,
actually ran
because
one?
they're going full pioneer.
Oh.
Yeah.
And obviously Chakotay being of Native American descent can obviously, just live off the land
Carpentry.
immediately, just
Yeah.
in his genes. That's how being native works.
What bath making?
So I have no idea if that's how.
Yeah.
No, I know, but we're laughing about it
It's
because
such a trope.
because they've lent into this trope. Yeah, she's busy trying to crack a cure for the illness, and he's like, "I made you a bath."
Yeah, let's stay here forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, that was a stupid tangent, but I think that's
No,
why.
That's a good one.
Because they're never going to get home if they keep,
Spending
spending
months
all
on
this
planets.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every episode.
Yeah, okay. My final note. It's just at the very end when everything's resolved and Janeway's back on. She's in her ready room and like Harry Kim, I think it's Harry Kim. He's there and he's like, "Oh, are you okay, Captain?" And she says, "I'm fine." And obviously, she can't tell the ensign that she's just had a really tough emotional away mission.
Mm.
But I kind of like how she keeps she has the bracelet. It kind of it's almost like it's supposed to become like Picard's flute from Inner Light. This episode is nowhere near as good as Inner Light.
No.
But she's got her own little keepsake now.
Mm.
It must be like something that every captain must aspire to have, an emotional keepsake.
Yeah, from a new part of the galaxy. From a race of people that she'll probably never come across again because, again, it's a one-way voyage. It's nice. Like, you don't always see, especially, no money and, minimalists and not many possessions. It's actually nice to see your characters have a couple of belongings. But,
yeah, I like to see like how like I would like to see more about how like the captain's wall like develops, all their little knickknacks they get.
That'd be good, actually, wouldn't it?
What they choose to keep and why.
That's why I really enjoyed Saru's room in Discovery, because as season 1 went by, where he couldn't do too much because Lorca was a dickhead, and then season 2 and then season 3, I loved how his room just became this jungle.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh, and then can you imagine? So he leaves, obviously, in the final season of Discovery to go do diplomacy and to get married and stuff, all well and good. And he just leaves Michael, his entire jungle. So she's supposed to captain it.
Yeah.
When you give someone a house plant, that's pretty stressful. Imagine giving someone 150 various house plants and you have to keep it all alive. Yeah. That's not a gift. That's a curse.
I
it's
think
a curse. Yeah.
I would have been like Michael, like, "Hey Zora, could you keep this room how it needs to be, like humidity.
That's probably what she did. That's a good
Zora
point.
can do that.
Yeah, that's good. I kind of forgot about that. Whoops. I know you only had one final point. I think I have a very final point. Tom and Dan, could you tell me what tellurium is and why it is so vital to the warp core and the larger starship systems?
So I'm going to jump in first because when you said tellurium, I thought you meant I was like, wait, is she talking about the Temerian language? No, it's the MacGuffin of the episode. I forgot.
Never heard of tellurium before. I didn't know it was so integral to the ship systems, and that they were dead in the water without it.
Oh, it's just a bloody MacGuffin, isn't it? And I think this is at a point in Voyager where they were still trying to do the limited resource thing, but they basically abandoned it pretty quick after, season 1.
Do they mention it again? The tellurium? Is it?
Got a memory alpha. Always.
Yeah, because there is an element on the periodic table called tellurium.
It was a necessary material used to stabilize the matter-antimatter reaction in a warp core. And then it is never mentioned before. No, sorry.
So it's just the one.
And it is never mentioned
it's just
after.
A MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Really?
It's also like gross yellow color.
And I like how the container that Neelix brought it back in was the exact container for it to go into Voyager. It did not have to be like decanted or processed in any way. It was just like, no, just stick it behind this nondescript panel.
I also really like how they got it from a vendor when it's pretty established that most of the civilizations don't get access to sophisticated technology. Like, you had vendors there selling linen weaved shirts and maybe some, I don't know, pots and pans. Oh, and yes, that's the gentleman that sells the tellurium for our warp cores.
I assume that he's like some sort of black market agent and he got it from Yeah, it's come
know.
from a government facility.
But we have to
so
make a lot of assumptions in this episode.
We do.
Yes. There's a lot of holes.
Wow, we've been really mean.
We have. And I think it's kind of the problem like I'm having with this episode is because we spoke about Voyager fairly recently, Tom.
Yes.
In like halfway through season 2, and that episode was also pretty boring. And I'm like, wait, am I remembering Voyager wrong? Does Voyager suck?
No,
And
Voyager is amazing.
There are good episodes, but we're just not getting them.
Yeah.
We're just rolling wrong.
Thanks for having me back on this boring episode. Oh, I have another final point that Tom mentioned before is Seducey Janeway.
Yeah.
And I just want to make
an
observation that Seducey, sexy is actually just how you're feeling and not what you're wearing, because she was actually, and I noted this, she was wearing the same skirt and top, and all she did was put a little red scarf around her neck and put her hair down. But it was her confidence. And it was enough for 2 guards to completely forget their stations and their orders. It was so stupid. Oh, just come around the corner into this black space.
That's kind of like how if you act like you belong sort of vibe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, like you just act sexy and you are sexy.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I should take that into my real world life.
Yeah, maybe this is something that we could all learn from Janeway. Just have a little tight scarf around your neck.
Yeah.
And
I'll try that.
My chest puffed out, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my god, that's so stupid. Okay, fine. I want to wrap this up. I want to get us some IMDb's. Who wants to start? I will start with an IMDb, and I'm going to start with IMDb because I have no idea what I'm going to give it. Yeah, this episode was fine to boring, I think it's a bit more infuriating because, as we've discussed, it had so much potential in so many other directions to have some really interesting conversations, but it just didn't with any of it, which is like, the potential wasted. Oh well. So for an IMDb, I'm going to go quite low, and again, this is harkening back to me trying to not just sort of sit around that 6, 7, 8 kind of range of IMDb's. So I'm gonna give it like a 5.8. I kind of like.
What, a 5.8?
5.8, yeah.
What kind of okay.
Well, like it's okay.
So
It's
really, you're
boring.
saying a 6. 5.8.
Kind of.
So
it's not quite a 6. It's not quite 5.5. It's just somewhere around there ish.
Right.
That's what I'm going.
Okay. Tom?
One of you guys, Tom, you want to go?
I'm going to give it a low score as well because, this episode didn't really gel with me, and I watched it twice to make sure.
Oh, God.
I'm going to give it a 5.2.
Wow.
Which is low.
And this had an impact on you, Tom, because you actually took notes, which is
I know
that says something.
Yeah.
Maybe going forward, Dan, you actually need to watch objectively bad episodes with Tom. Like maybe you could have a spin-off series, which is you get the worst rated Star Trek episodes and then watch them.
I'll mention it now. Actually, no, Tom, Mads, you do your rating, and then I'll come back and I'll bring a point up.
3 out of 10.
Wow.
Excellent. Love it.
I'm so sorry, and I do have respect to the writers, crew members, and the cast, but this was
doesn't sound like it.
That's what the 3 is there for. Basically, you get 1 point because Neelix was kind of cool, and then 2 points because I feel bad, and that's how I got to my score of 3.
Yeah. By the point this episode comes out, so season 3 starts coming out, I'm almost certain that we would have had some bonus episodes in between that have come out before this, so I can talk right now. Me and Jacob have, I guess by this point, have done some bonus episodes for the podcast, and I thought let's do something a bit different, but keep it on brand. And maybe you're right, Matt. Maybe we could do it like a little spin-off thing if me and Tom want to do something else. I said to Jacob, I was like, I will let you choose either a show, and then we'll randomly select the series and episode, or you can choose the season, or you can choose the episode, and the other ones will be randomly done. And you went for we're doing like the episode, and it was TNG season 1, and chatting with Jacob as he was going through a list of episodes. It's like which one to choose was fascinating.
You
'cause
didn't
there are
choose
some...
the Royale, did you? I bags that one.
No, that's not season 1. I
Oh
don't
crap!
think.
I always make that mistake.
I think that's 2, isn't it?
I think it's 2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I always make that mistake.
Yeah, no, we chose. Well, sorry, he chose conspiracy. You know the one with, like the worms people thing.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that one. But like, there was some like interesting episodes there. I was like, oh, that'd been good to talk about. Oh, that'd have been good to talk about. So yeah, maybe in the future, Tom, we could do something where like we give one of the hosts like a bit more choice, a bit more like something to like, so you can.
I mean,
tailor a little bit, like just
if
maybe something.
I get a choice,
Sure,
can we do Stargate?
Stargate.
Yeah. Well, that would be like an actually different podcast because you basically just do like
Nah, just do a random episode that we kind of forgot. Like, we'll just do the whole thing, Stargate, and then go, oh, oopsies. My bad. This is a Star
I'd be
Trek.
like, is this not in the Star Trek universe?
Yeah, they say like what? It's like Seven engaged.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's like a way to like make that kind of like the name of like Warp Factor Unknown, like Seven Unknown. I don't know, something. I have to think of a cool name. Has to have a cool name. Podcast have to have a cool name.
Tom, have you watched
Podcast Unknown.
Stargate?
Anyway,
No, I
my
keep
God.
meaning to, but I have not.
It's my favorite show.
okay, we need to. We've wrapped up. We've done our IMDb. Oh no, we haven't done what it actually got. Hold on. Star Trek Voyager Resistance gets a 6.9.
Wow.
Was anyone watching it when they rated it?
I mean, it's got 2,000 ratings. So.
Okay,
That's
alright.
amazing.
Then I'm wrong.
No, I think you, Mads, are actually you don't sort of subscribe to the IMDb meta of like rating.
Yeah, I don't actually know what the criteria is.
Yeah, and I'm trying to like break out that a little bit more because if you really most TV and movies on IMDb get somewhere between a 6 and an 8.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true.
And it's not really a very good broad scale of rating. So I'm trying to break out of that a little bit more and give things like 10s and 2s and stuff. But yeah. We need another episode. Madge, you'll be joining us for this one. So
Do I get a
that'd be
veto?
cool.
If you roll a really bad
No,
one.
there are no vetoes.
Oh.
There are no vetoes. I'll tell you what. That's a good point, Mads. I could read out the rules of how we select episodes. Hang on
Bit of a refresh.
So, we will watch two-parters. We will not watch whole story arcs. For example, an entire season of Discovery.
Oh.
If we somehow get the same episode, we'll go up or down one. We can't have the same show we've just watched, so we can't have Voyager next. We'll give us a
Aw.
break. I know. And we can't have the same show more than twice per season of Warp Factor Unknown. So we'd only be allowed up to 2 Voyagers out of the 10 episodes we're going to be doing. And yes, no vetoes. I always felt like if we had vetoes,
we wouldn't
we
be
would
watching
select an episode,
Resistance.
and you would never watch certain episodes. You just
Yeah.
avoid them. You roll like Discovery or Picard or whatever, and Tom be like, "No, I don't want to watch that. I just want to watch TNG." So I kind of feel like you have to kind of almost like force yourself to watch stuff you don't really necessarily want to watch.
Yeah.
And I feel like, Tom, that's actually led us to have some pretty interesting episodes and good conversations. I think it
I
works.
think so. I agree.
Anyway, Tom, we need an episode. We need you to roll us or select us out of a 1 and 13, I believe. No, 1 and 12 it'll be, because we're taking Voyager out. I think I would actually like a Discovery, because where we've got Mads on, Mads, you've recently finished Discovery, and you actually really enjoyed it, and you've got a lot to say, so I think a Discovery would be kind of cool.
Okay, here we go. 3.
Okay.
So that equates to. Have you got the list there, Dan?
No, you have a list. You always
yeah.
have a list. Tom, professional podcaster. Because your list is always out of order.
Yes. 3rd on my list is Enterprise.
Excellent.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Mads, are you happy?
Yeah, I am.
Excellent.
Well, it depends.
So
Depends what season.
I'm now going to
Of
roll
course.
for the series. Season, sorry.
Series, yeah.
Here we go.
So yeah, 1 to 4.
What would you like, Matt?
I'd like the 2 later seasons, as I've just
Okay.
done. I've watched the 1 and 2, but maybe it's whatever. I'm happy. Just go.
Right, here we go. It has come up 2.
Okay, so I've
Excellent.
just rewatched. Okay, cool.
Okay. Well, in a way that might be good because you'll have more knowledge of the
Fresh.
episodes than.
I'm just finding out how many episodes there are for you, Tom. Do you want to have a guess? You always like to guess.
26.
There are 26.
I'm always right, man. I don't know how it happens.
I'm sure.
He's just good.
It's a curse. Okay, ready? Drum roll, please. Okay, I'll just do it without drum roll. 19.
19.
Yeah.
Okay, that is Judgment. Captain Archer is arrested and imprisoned by the Klingons for allegedly conspiring against the Empire. I don't remember it. Man, do you remember that one is?
I can't remember.
No, I don't remember it, but Klingon episodes,
I love Klingon.
they're always alright. They're never the worst. I always found the Klingons in Enterprise to be some of the weaker points. I think because by this point we've seen the Klingons so much in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Like Enterprise does really good in like the Andorian Vulcan stuff. That's where Enterprise
And the Zindi.
rocks. And the Zindi, yeah. So maybe this won't be the best Enterprise, but we shall see.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. I always like Enterprise.
Yeah. Look, it's a journey. It's a journey for me.
So,
yeah.
Mads, you are currently on this journey. And I have
I've been
two
on a
questions
journey
for
for
you.
like 6 years.
Has this journey made you, first of all, fall in love with the theme song?
Oh, yeah, that was fun. I loved that from like the first go. I loved
Excellent,
that.
good. And what about Charles Tucker III?
Okay, no, that's the problem I have is that everyone loves Trip.
Love him. He's
They
great.
love him, and I've not figured out a way to like him.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you won't, and that's fine.
This sounds terrible. Like, there's that episode where the Zindi fire a huge missile at Earth. Is that right? One of the first really bad, like
a
full on aggressive, yeah. And it hits, and you look down, and it hits Florida. And it's like,
Yeah.
and his sister dies, and it's like,
How are you laughing? This is a new side to Matt we haven't seen before.
And I'm just like, why couldn't you have been
Just laughing uncontrollably.
I don't know. I just spent the whole time going, "Oh, you're such a wet blanket. Why couldn't it have been you?" Anyway, I'm really sorry. That was awful. I don't think anyone wants me back
Yeah,
next.
that is awful.
We'll include that.
I just cannot
Yeah, I think you
stand
will.
him. I much prefer.
Or his sister, apparently. Yeah.
Look, I would have been happy with a straight swap. She may have been alright. I'm struggling with Florida Man. He's just very Florida Man, and I can't handle it. I'd love it if any Americans were watching and they're like, "Do you know what geography is?" and it wasn't Florida. I'm pretty sure it was, but I would love that.
No, it is Florida. But actually, I'd be curious now from our American listeners if, like, especially if they're from Florida, is he an actually good representation?
Yeah,
of
or is
what
he
a Florida
annoying?
man is? Yeah.
It's like is it Malcolm Reed, right?
God, he's
as
the worst British guy.
no, but as an Australian, I'm like, oh yes, he's British, yes. But you guys watch him and you're really annoyed.
Yeah.
It's like when I see the very few Australian actors in things, it gives me the shits. I can't handle their accent. So sorry guys for having to listen to me.
No.
But yes, I'm not a huge fan of Trip yet. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, this doesn't appear to be a Trip episode. It appears to be an Archer episode.
And I'm kind of worried about that.
Yeah. He sometimes is okay in space.
No, I really like him, and I like his character arc and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes when he gets a bit too much screen time, without anyone to balance him, it can be a bit much. But I'm excited.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, well, excellent. Thank you for listening to Warp Factor Unknown. I've been your host, Dan, and I've been joined by my co-host, Tom.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Fantastic. And we've also been joined by our co-host, Mads.
Hi, sorry every Floridian out there.
Laughing at that misfortune.
Just Trip's sister.
Oh, yeah.
Just that one person from Florida. Today, we talked about the Star Trek Voyage episode Resistance from Season 2, join us next time as we take another deep dive into the Star Trek universe and we talk about the Star Trek Enterprise episode Judgment from Season 2, Episode 19. Until then, thank you for your continued support. If you would like to contact us, please email us at warpfactorunknown@outlook.com. That again is warpfactorunknown@outlook.com. Please don't forget to leave us comments on YouTube and Spotify and any other social media we may or may not be on. The music we use for this podcast is called Starfleet Command, and it's by Jeff Harvey.